right, and we're back. Oh, the furnace just cut off. Hope that's not too loud with the furnace. And my green screen got dropped, so I think I'm having a hard time getting it just accurate. But you know what? We're not going to sweat the small details. Okay, so as the title said, we're going to be processing NGC 7822. This is a nebulosity region in the constellation Cepheus. Cool thing about this particular image that we're going to process today is that number one, if you can see it, it looks like a skull. If you can't see it, when you do see it, you're not going to be able to unsee it. The data that I collected is a couple of years old, and it's mostly hydrogen alpha. Okay, so I was shot in just that very, very narrow wavelength of HA. And I've also got some oxygen data with it, about half as much as the hydrogen alpha. So primarily it's going to be a red image or reddish image, which we can tweak that and bring it into more of the oranges, give it a kind of a Halloween spooky feel, and I hope it turns out okay. Interesting note about this particular nebula that we're going to be processing today. Number one, the data was acquired by myself. Everything that I process is all acquired by myself through my telescope. The only data that I publish that doesn't belong to me occasionally is Hubble Space Telescope images, which are public domain, and the new James Webb Space Telescope. Give you an example of what I'm working on here. I managed to download some data from the JWST, and this is a single image of M16, or the Eagle Nebula. Absolutely beautiful. Much more detail than what you're ever going to get from the Hubble Space Telescope. I just have the one frame, so as the data becomes available, I'm going to download it and I'll process it. Nice thing about this is it gives me practice, and it allows me to post it. However, we do not hold any copyright to any images that are produced or that we publish from anything from Hubble or James Webb Space Telescope. It's public domain, so we're allowed to play with the data. We're allowed to process it and, give it an artistic representation of what we think it would look like or what we like it to look like. But we cannot claim no ownership to the image, only processing. And I clearly state that on the bottom of these images that, although it was processed by myself, the data clearly came from, and I'll specify the website that the data came from. So anybody that's into astrophotography can hop on in, download the data, and have a go at it. Okay, cool thing about what we're doing now is we're going to, let me just get rid of this here because I don't need that anymore. We're going to process this image. Should take probably about 35-40 minutes if I don't talk too much. One thing I do want to note for all you gamers out there, and this is very cool, so I just got a text from this gaming site that the game Elite Dangerous is just going on sale. All right, now what's cool about Elite Dangerous is this particular NGC that we're going to be processing today is actually in Elite Dangerous, right? By Frontier Development, Elite Dangerous, you can actually fly to NGC 2822. I don't know what it looks like in the game. However, I'm tempted to buy the game this weekend just so that I can do this flight. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so I've pre-calibrated the data. That takes the longest, so there's no sense, doing that online. If anyone out there that is watching is interested in how I get the process going, right? I'll be happy to do that for you on a separate stream. It is a little arduous, so a lot of sitting there watching the data, calculate. But it shouldn't be too difficult to do. Hey, thanks a lot, Maya. You know what? You can easily do what I do one day. This is something that's easy to do. That's why I'm sharing it now, and hopefully you'll enjoy this one. So let's get right into processing this. So I managed to calibrate all the oxygen data, and this right here is my oxygen, my O3 data, and I finished the hydrogen alpha data, and this is my HA. So this image, we're going to process it in something called HOO, which is a common palette. Again, it's going to give us more of the reds, right? But I don't know if you can see it now because we haven't got it, and there's a lot of noise in this image. But if you look really closely, you're going to see that here's the forehead, here's an eye, there's the nose, and this is the jaw. So maybe it's just me, but I see a skull. If you see a skull, let me know. If you can't see it, as we continue processing it, let me know, and we'll see if we can't figure it out. Sometimes you got to turn your head, look at it a different way. I've been told there's more than one skull in there, but myself, I can only see the one. All right, so let's combine these into our HOO image, and let's begin. Okay, so first thing we're going to want to do here is to combine these images. So let's clear these off. We're going to build this in what I explained is going to be an HOO. So we want our hydrogen on top, and then we're going to go with our O3, and then we're going to go with our O3 again. So there's our hydrogen, our oxygen, and our oxygen. Okay, can you see it? Cool. You know, as we process this a little bit more, it'll be easy to pick out. All right, so there's our hydrogen, our oxygen, and our oxygen. So let's see what this gives us now. Okay, so here's our image. We're gonna have to stretch it, of course, because this is what we're gonna see naturally. And there we go. So we've got some blue gradients in there, which is the oxygen, and then we've got our hydrogen alpha, which is the reds. And the blues will probably mostly filter out as we process this image. You'll notice that there's a fair bit of noise in here. All this speckling or this modeling, that's noise that we're going to take care of throughout the processing. And as far as star quality is concerned, this was done a few years back, so you can see here that we have some elongated stars on the corner. Not so much there, not so much there, and not so much there. So this is a tilt problem. So I didn't quite have the right spacing between the sensor of my camera and my optics. So that's been corrected. However, it's not that noticeable, but there is a process through Pixinsight that allows me to actually correct those elongated stars. However, I'm not going to get that in depth today. All right, let's begin here. So first thing we need to do is we need to crop this image out and get rid of it's too big. You know, we want to focus more on the skull, so we're just going to do a dynamic crop. And let's bring this into, say, about there. That looks pretty good right about there. Now, I'm getting rid of a lot of nebulosity down here, but you know what? Again, it's Halloween coming up, so the focus is going to be on the skull. I'm not going to be pulling anything off of this, so I won't need to keep a instance of this dynamic crop. So once we've got it, bang, we're done. We're going to let it go. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a automatic background extraction. And this is just going to tell us what we're going to be pulling out for the gradients. So we're going to, I want to keep the background model. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm subtracting all the gradients. So where you see it going in from the blues into the reds, stuff like that, the image really shouldn't look like that. There's a lot of variance in it. This is going to kind of neutralize it and get those gradients out. And it's actually going to give me a printout of the gradients, or not a printout, but a screenshot. So I'll be able to see what that looks like as we extract the background. All right, so here's our background ABE background image. Now if we stretch that, we can see there's the gradients. So that's the unwanted color or gradient in the color that we do not want in our image. We want our image to be much flatter. This will take care of it. So if we have a look at our image now, see how that's much more smooth. It's evened itself out. If I go back, that's before and that's after. Okay, so you can see how it's removed the gradients, it's flattened the image, but it hasn't taken away from any of the nebulosity, especially in the skull area. Okay, so once we've done that, we can close that off. Now we normally go to a background neutralization. The problem is with background neutralizations, what I did just there is I took a copy of it. I always work on the copy if I'm going to try something I don't think I'm going to keep. Okay, so the background neutralization, because of the nebulosity, might get rid of some of this nebulosity. We can pull it back. We can pull the detail back out. But if I don't have to do that process later on, I would rather not to. So I always run it on a copy. We're going to see what it looks like. If I like it, we'll process it on the original. If I don't, we'll delete the copy and we'll move on to another process. So background realization, and I normally don't pick a target. You could select a target, a certain part of the image, and do it step by step. I just, because we're dealing with a lot of nebulosity, I just let it run its thing at all the defaults. So let's see what we got here. Yeah, you see what that did? That's nasty. That's just nasty at all. That didn't do too much for it at all. So we're going to, yeah, and look at this. Here's why I do the copies, duplicates. Bring this in. Okay, so this is noise. Okay, and we're zoomed into 2:1. So when you look at all this noise, if we take a look at what it did here and we bring that into 2:1 again, okay, the noise got a lot worse, much worse. So we've introduced a lot of noise into the beginning stage, and what happens is we have to remove that noise later. So the more noise we have as we proceed, the harder it's going to be to clean up. So I don't like what it did. We're not even going to use the neutralized background. We're just going to skip it for now and not even worry about it. All right. So the next step is we can deal with some noise in this state. And to do that, we're going to do a AC DNR. Now, I'm using a lot of terms, making the assumption that you know what this is. You're not going to, because you're probably not going to have this program. So this is more for the fun of it. You know, let's take an image from raw and let's create something that you might want to put on your wall. I apologize for using the terms. It's just a habit. If you have any questions regarding the terms or exactly what it is, or if you want me to go into a little bit more detail, I'm quite happy to do that as well. All right, so this here, I'm just going to make a couple of changes here to the lightness and the chrominance, because we're going to work on both channels at the same time. And we'll bring that down to 490, and we're going to bring this down to 90%, and we're going to do a preview. The preview is going to tell us what it's capturing as far as nebulosity is concerned and isolating the stars for us. Okay, yeah, that is a lot. That's pretty much the whole thing, right? So I'm not going to be able to do too much with that. It's far too bright. We can bring it down a little bit, but that's just, yeah, that's tough. So we're not going to bother the preview. However, we are going to add the NCR here. So let's make a box, and we just want to highlight a small region. Now, in the stage that we're at, we might run this later. It might not be appropriate for now, but we're going to run a test anyways on the preview, and we're going to see exactly what we're getting here. Okay, so that dulled the stars. You can see it dealt with the noise, right? It's smoothed out a lot of the noise, but we've pretty much dulled the stars up. And that has to do with this particular box down here. It's hard to get it exact, so if we go to another preview, and let's just see if we can't tune this in a little bit here. Yeah, it's just not. Probably has more to do with the amount of nebulosity, because I'm just not able to get it to tweak it quite in. Let's see here. Let me let's back this up a bit. Lightness mask on both. 2.6, 9, 4, and 4. Yeah, those all look good. It's going to be the bright side and the bright side. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Okay, that's not too terribly bad, with the exception that it's really playing havoc on the stars. So we're not going to use this at this particular stage. We're going to move on, and we'll use it at another stage. This should be fine. The one thing I could do, though, is I could try TVGD noise and let it run a few iterations just to see what we got. So let's give that a try before we move on. This should only take a second, and nope, that's a disaster. So because I'm working within a preview window, anything that I change in here does not affect the main image. All right, so the noise isn't bad. We'll deal with the rest of it later. What we're going to do now is we're going to make the final stretch on this image so that we can work with it in a different state. Now before we stretch it again, I'm creating a copy just in case the stretch doesn't go well. Alright, that's a decent stretch. Close our preview, and now we're going to turn it off. And there we go. So now we're working another state. Now we're going to go back to the ACDNR, and we're going to take a look at this preview again, and let's see if we can't get some noise reduction happening here. Okay, everything's the same. Make back to 4. This becomes 90%. And the lightness becomes 4. Everything else looks good. What do we get for a preview now? There we go. Now we got a much better preview. Okay, so essentially what we're going to do is we want to try to isolate the stars, and the background is what's going to be smooth. So let's bring this down. Oh, that might have to stay up there. All right, let's give that a shot. Not quite. It's a little bit better. It's not quite what I'm looking for here. Yeah, just a bit high. Let's just take a look here. Let's take the preview off. Yeah, that's not bad. We're getting rid of some of the noise. You can see how it's getting a little bit better. I think we need to tweak that just a bit more. Let's see here. Let's take that up. That's not bad. So it looks a little mottled, but let's just do a full apply on this and see what happens to the image. Shouldn't take very long. Alright, there we go. Now you see how mottled that is? I'm not liking that. So this is the thing about the processing, is that there's multiple tools for doing this. If I went into the TVG noise and we tried this here again, because now we're in a different state, where it went from a linear state to a nonlinear state, we get totally different results, right? So we take a look at, let's back this up here and see what we got. So you see, that's moderate noise removal. Very moderate, like nothing that I would consider to be, you know, too much. Okay, so we'll do a different noise reduction here in a bit. Thing we want to do now is let's take a look at our curves transformation. We'll try to get some saturation up on this, and we're going to pull away from the reds when we can, but we're just going to get the saturation up just a little bit here, and then we're going to get the stars gone. We're going to remove the stars and then work with just the background, much like we did when we processed NGC7822. Okay, that's not bad. All right, let's remove our stars. And for that, we're going to use something called StarNet 2. This should take about 30 seconds, and it'll give us a mask with the stars separate from the image, so we can work with just the nebulosity. And this is a simple image to work with. I mean, there's not a lot of complicated things we're going to do with it. We're dealing with hydrogen alpha, and we're dealing with oxygen. So it's going to be on the dull side. All we want to do is see if we can make this pop, darken up the background, get some of those dark lanes, those dark structures to have a little bit more definition, and that'll pretty much be it. I'll show you my previous one that I did a few years back in comparison to this one when we're done. but it should be good. All right, so here we have our star field, and the first thing we're going to do with this is remove any magenta stars, or reduce the magenta stars. There we go. That took care of that. So these stars, they're nice and round. Blues, reds. We've got good star color in there, right? A little heavy on the blue for my color palette, but beyond that, they're pretty good. So we're going to pull this aside. Now we have our image, and you can see how it doesn't look quite as noisy now. So this is the, get rid of the preview. This is what we're going to work with. This is kind of our blank slate. So let's get back to some noise reduction here, and we're going to try nonlinear noise. We are currently in the nonlinear state. Now this is ACDNR gain, but we're going to make a few changes to it. Got this set to 3, 5. Okay, good. And we're not even going to touch the preview this time. See what this does. Yeah, there you go. See how that smoothed it out? Still a little mottled, but it's a lot smoother now than what it was. If we go back, it's grainy, and then we remove the grain. Okay, so I like that. We're going to deal with that and leave it there. So first thing we're going to do here, so there's our clone that we took a copy of. I'm just going to hide that away, right, just in case we have to go back. So image 58, the Skull Nebula. Where do we want to start? I think the first thing we should do is get a little bit of a reduction in here in the histogram. Just bring it into more in line with what it should be as far as dark's concerned. It's still a bit on the bright side, so we're going to tone this down. We actually want these peaks to be over here. This central peak here I want right about here. So we're just going to bring that back. Actually, let's get the preview on so you can see it. Let's bring that peak down. There we go. Nice. See how we're bringing her back. Now I'm not going to bring it down all in one shot. We're just going to bring it down a ways here. And then I'm going to pull this back up a bit. Okay, so if we see what we got here, there's our differences. Now the one thing you've noticed here that you might see is I have a dust donut on here, which I think we're going to crop this out. And that's this spot right there. Okay, and I have a small one here too. So those are going to be gone by the time we're done. What causes that? You're not going to believe it. What causes that is a piece of dust that is in my image train somewhere, and that is just a magnified dust particle. Now I can take something called flats, which are taken very quick images against a light background, like a light panel, and what it does is it illuminates those dust particles, and then when I process the raw data, the dust particles actually get subtracted out. Okay, didn't do such a good job this time. Like I said, I'm working with older data. I can't even remember if I did flats with this. So just for the purpose of this small demonstration, we're just going to work with what we got on the screen, and I'm not going to cry over spilled milk. We will be able to darken them up and get them out as we go, but as you can see, they're there, right? So byproduct of dirty optics, and unfortunately it's not something that we can all easily get rid of. It happens to all of us. Alright, so we're going to put that there. Alright, now let's take a background shot of this, and let's start working with some masks and see if we can't bring some detail in and out. So this mask that I put on here was a mask of itself because I just want to work with some contrast, and we're going to just go over here and we're going to show this mask. We don't need to actually see the mask that's on there when we go into our curves transformation. Alright, so the first thing we're going to work with is our luminance, and we're going to see which part of the mask we're on. And as you can see, that's pretty much the whole thing. Okay, let's reverse this mask. And this doesn't always work, right? You know, when you're doing this off of this particular type of image, sometimes the mask is just not subtle enough to get rid of it. You can see how that skull pops out. The deeper the red I go, the more the skull seems to just bite. Okay, so we're not going to use that at all. We're not going to use the duplicate as a mask. So we're going to remove that, and let's start pulling some masks off. All right, so let's pull a red off, and we're going to blur it by 2. We don't want any sharp edges on the masks. See what we got. All right, so there's our red mask. Now you can see when we come in on this mask that we don't see the dust bunnies. So this is probably going to be the mask that we're going to use as an invert, just to get rid of some of those dust bunnies. So let's just set that aside by the star mask. Let's pull another mask off. All right, let's pull, let's go into our reds, cayennes. Let's see what we got for magenta. Some of these we're not going to have because of the color combination. Like this guy right here, there's nothing there. Color mask. Cayennes. Now cayennes and blues we should have to some degree because of the O3. And there we go. That's that background here. Now notice how you don't see the dust bunnies in here either. So that we're going to use to bring out a lot of the dark structure. Let's just set that aside. So we've got red, we've got cayenne. And we're only going to get maybe 3 out of here. I don't think we're going to get much. Let's take a look at the blues. There's our blues again. Now the blues are basically accented cayenne, and this right here you can see is the start of that dust bunny. So we're going to keep this one. We're probably not going to use it, but we're just going to line it up there anyways. And now let's take a look at our yellows. Yellows should come up negligible. No, they didn't. Okay, I was wrong. Look at our red. Here's our red and our yellow. So is it just me, or is it because we only use the 2 channels, is it pulling yellows off the red? Hard to say, really hard to say, but we've got it anyway, so we'll hang on to that. All right, I think that's all we're going to be able to use for channels. So let's start with the most obvious. Let's get this red mask on here and see what we can start doing. All right, so here's our red mask. And if we take a look at through the saturation of what it's doing, is it's focusing on the skull and just the skull, right? So we can bring that RGB up. Now when we can actually start working on some colors, bring in some gold, just some oranges. Like I said, we want to pull this into the oranges because this is going to be our Halloween project. I haven't quite found a pumpkin yet to do, so, but if I do, we'll do it. All right. So again, what I'm doing now, this is all subjective, right? This is all, you know, based on your eye. What I'm seeing as far as color is concerned on my monitor might not be what you're seeing. Either A, because your monitor is calibrated differently than mine, or B, your eyes are not the same as mine. So that's why we're going to try. We're going to try to exaggerate the oranges a little bit and get it to just pop. I like that, but I don't think I'm quite ready to go that far yet. Let's invert this mask, and now we can take a look at the luminance here and we can bring some of that down. So we don't want to go too much quite up yet. Let's take a look at the RGB. Yeah, see, we don't want to come down too far. We're going to do this in stages, okay? So let's bring that down a little bit there. And let's take a look at our blues and the greens, because sometimes we can blend the other colors in, right? I'm liking that so far. Getting rid of some of the blues. We're getting some oranges. They're going to pop. Hey, are you still with me, Maya? What do you think? You think it's starting to look more Halloweenish? All right, so we've applied that. We're going to clear that. We're going to go back and invert this mask one more time, just because I want to see if we can bring, yeah, I'm not sure about that. Let's go back into luminance. Are we on the right mask here? Mask. Invert. There we go. That's not bad. It's getting a bit much, I think. Alright. Okay, so we're going to leave it at that. That's going to be it for that particular mask. So far, I'm kind of liking it. It's not bad. You know, we've introduced a bit of noise, but I think by the time we're done, we're going to have a pretty neat image. Okay, let's remove that mask. Now let's go into the cayenne. So this is also going to help us get rid of that dust donut a little bit. So let's just into the luminance, see what we're affecting here. Okay, so that is pretty extreme. All right, so we have to be careful with this one. All right, we don't want to do it too much. Now we're bringing out a lot more in here, which I really like. Right, so it's we're pulling some data out that is a bit underneath what we originally were looking at. That's not bad. Bring the saturation up. The saturation not doing too much, so I think we're going to be okay there. We're going to apply that. Now let's reverse this. Invert mask. Alright, so let's go back to RGB. Now we're bringing up the background again. Not quite what we want. And I think we're going to not do much more with that particular mask. Alright, let's remove that mask. Alright, for anybody that's just popped in, just to give you a quick rundown, we're processing the Skull Nebula for Halloween. It's a simple process, data I captured a few years back. We have my oxygen data here, and then we have my hydrogen data here. And if you look closely, you can see that there's actually a skull in there. So we're going to be in the process of just kind of pulling out as much detail as we can with this older data and see if we can't make it look kind of spooky. All right, so let's get on to our blues, which is similar to what we had on the cayennes, but let's see what we got. Okay, go to the RGB. Yeah, it's kind of blotchy a bit. We got to be careful here, right? Because if we pull it down, we have too much variance between the colors, and if we pull it up, it starts to get washing out. So we need to find a nice balance between the two. Okay, I'm liking that so far. Let's inverse this mask just to see what we can do with it. RGB. Oops, let's get a preview going here. There we go. Yeah, see, we don't want to do that. We want to keep that subtle. Maybe even bring it down just a hair. We'll work on the luminance later on the reds. Saturation. It's too red. You know, we need to get this back into the oranges. We had it. We were going good there for a bit. It's getting a bit too much. I don't want that much in there. Just a bit more though. There we go. Alright, there we go. That's looking pretty good to me. Take a look at the before and the after. There's the after. And there's the before. So it's a little bit brighter in some areas. But what we've managed to do is we've managed to take care of some, we've managed to soften it up a little bit. Which I'm not going to use because I like it this way. Again, that's just my personal preference. Okay, let's remove this mask. Now we're going to go back into the cayennes, or the yellows actually, which is the reds. And and curve. So now we should be able to work on a little bit more saturation. We can, there we go. Now let's start trying to see if we can't tweak this into the yellows. I don't hear Ollie. Ollie! Ollie! You want to say hi? Come here. Oh, look. Can you say hi? Yes, just a good boy. Mwah. Are you my buddy? Are you my buddy? Say hi, Ollie. He sees you. You need to get yourself a mic or something like that so I can talk to you. Mwah. All right, down you go. Down you go. All right. Okay, enough playing with the dog. Okay, so now I've lost my train of thought. Where was I? What were we doing? Right, we're trying to get back into the oranges. So let's take our blues and reds. Just a bit too much. Let's go into our greens. Kind of brown. There we go. Do you think that looks orange? Am I getting close to orange? There we go. Yeah, I think so too. So that's looking pretty good. Okay, so I like that. We're gonna go Gonzo. Now I could apply it again because you see it's doubling it, right? Let's just take that off. There's that. Let's hit it one more time. Now we're just lightening the image. We don't want to go too light on the image, so we are not going to do that. We're not going to do that. All right, I'm liking this so far. The skull is quite prominent now. We haven't introduced too much noise yet, we don't want to introduce too much noise. But it looks pretty good. Let's work on some of these dark lanes here. So let's get this mask out of here. And again, there's not much of this image, you know, because we're dealing with the two colors. I think it's going to be primarily what we see now. We're just going to try to bring out a little bit more detail as far as the dark structures are concerned. Let's bring this up a bit. All right, so we're looking for this type of stuff in here, and in here, and along here. We want it just to pop a little bit more than what it does now. There we go. That was subtle. It was subtle, but it's there. Okay, let's run that one more time on a 5x5. Okay, there's our 5x5. All right, perfect. That's what I was looking for. So you see now we've got our dark spots a little bit more defined. So it brings out the eyes, the mouth, right? Just a little bit more than what it did before. So I'm quite happy with that. We do have some noise that's been introduced, so we're going to take care of the noise here and see if we can run TGV denoise on it. And we're not looking to get rid of too much of the noise, but just enough to tone it down a little bit. And then I think we're ready to take a look at our stars. You know, let's work on our star color, and we'll get it going there. Oh, thanks, Maya. Hey, if you like this when it's done, I'll send you a copy over so you can put it on your screen, your background for your computer or your phone or whatever you want to use. I'm doing this one. This is a Halloween one, so this is free to anybody that wants to use it. Are you on your phone or you on a computer watching? Nice. Nice. So are you seeing the same kind of colors? You know how to take a screenshot, right? Okay. When the image is done, when we're done, if you wouldn't mind taking a screenshot and sending it to me, that way I can see what other people are seeing on the other end as far as the color, what it looks like, you know. You know, myself, am I too contrasty? You know, should I, you know what I mean? Just gives me some feedback, because I really like the idea of doing this online. People get an opportunity to see what's behind the photo, which I think is really great. Your science teacher would have loved this. Okay, so that ran that noise. That did exactly what I wanted to do. We're not going to push the noise on this thing anymore. All right, I'm going to do one more. No, I'm not going to crop it yet. We got to get rid of some of this extra stuff that's on the screen. And with this ABE background, we don't need that anymore. And just in case you join me, I don't know if if I touched on this a couple of times. This is the gradients that was in the original image. Before we started, we had to pull those gradients out. And that is our clone. That's our original calibrated image, which we don't need that anymore. What do we got behind here? Okay, that's our noise one. Okay, good. Let's minimize that. Let's minimize that. All right, so far it looks pretty good. I think the skull popped out a little bit. So now let's take a look at our stars. We're not going to use that. That was our yellow mask, it was the red. I don't know why the yellow and the red came out the same. Okay, so here's our star mask. Now what we want to do is we want to work on some saturation. We want to make these just a little bit brighter, I think. And I would watch on the computer, but I can't. Oh, that's too bad. That's too bad. Well, you know what? Maybe that's something that you might end up getting, right? Nice laptop. A laptop would be good. Okay, so let me see here. Let's look at some saturation here on these, and then let's try to work on the. Well, I want to tighten the stars up a bit, right? There's a way to do that. But first of all, let's just go into our curves again and go into our saturation, and let's just bring this up just a hair. Let's apply that. So if we look at these stars now, they are beautiful. And you know, even the slightly elongated ones, which is not a tracking error, it was a tilt error, are not bad, right? So what we're going to do now is I want to just try to see if we can't tighten these stars up a little bit. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to make a little preview. Let's make a preview of an area here, like let's grab a big star and some small ones. All right, there we go. So what we're going to do now is something called deconvolution. And this is where, if you look at the motion blur here, see how this box is square? Okay, and I can change the angle on that. This is where I can actually take those elongated stars and shrink them down a little bit on the edges to give them the appearance of being round. Unfortunate part about it is that though that's going to apply to the rest of the image. So the round stars will end up fat or elongated on the other side. So if you have lots of star trailing and you can't crop it out, that's when I would come in here and do that. But for now, we're just going to work on the parametric, and we're going to do some samples here. It's going to bring that down to 1. Now watch what happens with these stars here when we do this. Okay, see how it got modeled a little bit? You see it's modeled in there? That's not what we want. Okay, so because we're working on a preview again, I can just continue to keep trying settings. So let's bring this all the way up to 5.6. Not bad. So there you go. So that's at 5.6. These are nice and round. Okay, and if we remove that, just take a look. There's before, there's after. So we've reduced the stars a little bit, and we've tightened them up. I don't know if I like that in this particular image, so I'm going to take my box here, and let's move this box somewhere else, and let's do that same preview on this side. Okay, what do you think? Do you think it's better? Yeah, I like Watch on Lake too. You know what? I love Watch on Lake. The problem with Watch on Lake though is that there's so many trees. It's really difficult to get a good star shot, right? But you know what? I'm going to make it work here. We're coming into winter now, so it's going to be tough. But that's why I'm working on old data. Unfortunately, I'm an old guy, so you know me. If I don't practice, I'm going to lose it. So it's better to work on old data until I got some new stuff. I'm not sure I like this at that depth. Do you think it looks good, better, or before or after? You like the stars a little tighter or not quite so tight? Take that up a little bit more. That's not bad either. Yeah, I think so too. So let's apply this to the whole image. Okay. It's just going to take those bigger bloated stars and it's just going to tighten them up a little bit. Make them see that. There you go. So there's a good example. See how's that bloated star? So that's after and that's before. Right? But it's not changing the bulk of the other stars, just getting rid of some of the bloat. So I like that. What I'm going to do is get rid of the preview. Now I'm going to take a copy of this, right? And then I'm going to take my original. We're going to undo what we did. Okay, so we're back to our bloated stars again. And then that way, if this process, and there you can see the comparison between the two. Right, so this is a 1-to-1. These are both 1-to-1. 1-to-1 and 1-to-1. And you can see the size difference. Right? So it's much tighter. Alright, so this is the one we're going to use, but we're going to keep our original just in case we don't like it. And that way I'm not backing up too much. Alright, now before I do that, we're just going to take one more histogram look at this thing. And can we bring it down? Just a hair. There we go. Just a smidgen. Alright. Get rid of the preview. And now let's add these stars back in. This is going to be really cool. I like the image like this, starless, and I would probably put that on my wall like that. But we're going to introduce the stars, and it's going to change the whole dynamic of the image. It's pretty cool. So we're going to do this two ways. We're going to do it in a reduction, which means that we're actually going to take our existing stars that we've tightened up, and we're going to reduce them by 20%. Okay, image 58 new. That's it there. Okay, image 58 new. 0.8 star mask, which means you're taking the star mask, and we're going to reduce it by 20% onto our image. And we're going to take a look at it, reduce 20% and not reduce 20%, just to see if we can get a contrast on that. All right, there you go. There's our stars added in. That is cool. I don't even know if I want to try it the other way. What do you think? You want to try it the other way? I don't know. I think it looks good the way it is. Yeah. I honestly think we're done. What do you think? Do you like that? Would you put that on your phone? You love it. Okay, me too. All right, let's take that off there. All right, we're going to be getting rid of this one. We don't need it. Let's get rid of the star mask. We don't need it. That is an absolute beautiful image. Now, just to show you where we came from, this is our finished product of the Skull Nebula, or NGC 7822. And just a reminder, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but I'll mention it again real quick. There's a game by Frontier Developments called Elite Dangerous. Now, I know a few people that have played this, and I got a chance to try it. I just got an email that it's on sale, and this exact nebula, the Skull Nebula, is actually in the game of Elite Dangerous. So I'm tempted to buy the game and fly to this nebula and see if you can see. I mean, I know it's just a game, and I know it's compiled data, whereas this is an actual photograph of the real thing. But I think it'd be interesting and fun to try it. And just to give you an idea here as well, this particular nebula, right, is, what are we looking at here? I just pulled the data for you. It's, doesn't say. I believe this is about 2,600 light years away, and the core region being a couple of million years old. I'd have to relook the data up to see what it is. So anyway, so this is the finished image that we just finished processing, And let's just take a look at what we started with. What we started with was our oxygen, our O3, okay? And then we combined that with our hydrogen alpha, which was this data here, okay? And that in turn created what we have right here, the final image. And that is, oops, I just want to try to blow that up a little bit for you guys. There we go. So that's the end of this processing session. I think we've accomplished what we set out to accomplish. If you wouldn't mind doing a screenshot for me, or you know what I mean, we discussed that earlier, Maya, and forward that over to me on my phone so I can have a look at exactly what you're seeing, I would really, really appreciate it. And I will send a copy of this image over to you, part and part, because you helped me finish it. And that's it. We're done. Just like that. Now I think it's time to go flying. What do you think? Pretty cool. Nice Halloween image. Oh, you got it, eh? Let me take a look at that real quick here. Have a look what you're looking at. Oh my. Wow. That does look pretty good, doesn't it? All right, guys. Thank you all for watching. This was NGC7822, the Skull Nebula in the constellation Cepheus. I hope you enjoyed it. There's going to be a lot more to come. Hopefully I get some clear skies. I can start taking pictures, and we'll start doing other stuff. Bye for now.